In 2015, popular high school football player Aiden Brown had everything going for him. 17 years old, top of his game, and already being scouted by D1 schools. Coaches praised his discipline, his drive. Reporters called him the future. 3 days after leading his team to the state semifinals, his ex-girlfriend, Chantel Grooves, told police he assaulted her. Aiden was arrested, tried as a juvenile, and sentenced to 7 years. His name was stripped from the headlines, his future gone before it started. Chantel moved on, new town, new name, married with children, quiet life. But he never forgot. Fast forward 10 years later, he took his revenge in the most gruesome and traumatic way ever knew working from the scene. In host Day's decision, Aiden Brown was a natural. From the moment he first stepped onto the field, coaches saw it. Quick feet, sharp instincts, and a calm, ruthless precision that made him impossible to ignore. By 15, he was already playing above his level. By 16, he was outplaying teammates 2 years older. Scouts noticed. They started showing up quietly at practices, watching from the sidelines. By his final year, they weren't quiet anymore. Calls came in weekly, letters stacked up. Recruiters were flying in to watch him run drills. Local reporters called him a machine. Commentators praised his discipline, his attitude, his stats. Game after game, he delivered. Long runs, clean catches, smart plays under pressure. Every pass thrown his way looked like a sure thing. He wasn't just talented, he was reliable. Focused, no scandals, no drama, just football. People said he was going places. Some said he already had. According to Aiden's official statement, the relationship started off simple. 2 teenagers figuring things out. He and Chantel began dating in his junior year, just as his name was starting to gain momentum. At that point, the spotlight was still small. He wasn't famous, but people were starting to notice. She was there early, at practices, after games, in the stands. At first, they were inseparable. But as his popularity grew, so did the distance between them. What started as small disagreements turned into constant tension. Aiden described it as exhausting. Arguments over who he talked to, where he was, why he didn't text back fast enough. He said it only got worse once the attention picked up. When girls started approaching him after games, slipping into his messages, showing up where he was. According to his statement, he gave in, once. It wasn't serious, but it happened. And Chantel found out. He didn't deny it. What followed, he said, was a long, drawn-out collapse. Not a clean breakup, a series of heated arguments, some lasting hours. She was angry, he said. Not just about what he did, but about how public it was. She felt humiliated, betrayed. The final fight was ugly, words thrown back and forth, accusations, regret, and then it was over. He ended it. She was livid. Even though he acknowledged that he was wrong for cheating, he stated that that was not the basis of him breaking up. He wrote in quote, "She was so upset after our breakup that she slapped me for the first time ever." A couple of months passed after the breakup. Aiden had moved on, at least publicly. He was deep in training, surrounded by coaches, recruiters, and the weight of expectations. His name was hotter than ever. Every game brought more attention, more interviews, more eyes on him. Then came the accusation. It didn't come in the middle of chaos. It wasn't emotional, it wasn't loud, it was calculated. According to investigators at the time, Chantel walked into a police station and made a statement, calm, composed, and prepared. She said Aiden had assaulted her one night shortly after their breakup. She gave a clear timeline, specific details, the kind of consistency that doesn't slip under pressure. And she didn't stop there. She got the idea the night of the breakup, the last time they met in private. After he left, she bruised herself and took pictures and videos, making it seem like she was just raped. She then took these as evidence. She listed where he was, what he said, even what he wore. Investigators said her account didn't shake once during questioning. Every part of her story was supported by something. A photo, a note she said she wrote that night. She even connived with her best friend who claimed Chantel called her crying hours after the alleged incident. It wasn't just a claim, it was a carefully built case. By the time the report reached prosecutors, it looked airtight. The timeline matched. The witness backed it up. The evidence felt real. And Aiden? He said it never happened. But in the face of what she presented, that denial didn't carry much weight. Not in court, not in public, not with everything stacked against him. The investigation didn't take long. With the kind of evidence Chantel brought in, most of the usual steps were skipped. There was no delay, no hesitation. Detectives moved quickly, questioning Aiden, pulling his phone records, checking his alibi. But the truth is, nothing he said held up against what she had. According to the case file, Aiden denied everything. He said they did meet that day, but it was only to talk about their relationship. He also said they got physical, but only because they were having a heated argument, which didn't help his case. But what she built was enough: clean, structured, emotionally convincing. Within weeks, he was arrested. Headlines hit every local outlet within hours of Aiden's arrest. High school football star accused of rape. News vans parked outside his home. Reporters waited outside the courthouse. Talk shows debated it before the full story even surfaced. His face, once celebrated on sports pages, was now plastered under words like predator and monster. Clips of his best plays were replayed on TV, but now with grim voiceovers and speculation. Commentators who once praised his discipline called him a disgrace. Interviews with teachers, neighbors, and classmates started circulating, most of them shocked, but some not surprised. Everyone had something to say. The story was perfect media fuel: a rising athlete, a betrayal, a broken girl, and just enough evidence to silence doubt. And through all of it, Aiden was silent. He was arrested in front of cameras, handcuffed outside the school gym while his teammates watched. Video of the moment went viral. You could see the confusion on his face, but it didn't matter. Public opinion had already chosen a side. By the time he entered the courtroom, it wasn't about guilt or innocence. It was about optics, damage control, making an example. The case was fast-tracked. Prosecutors didn't need to push hard. The narrative was already cemented. With the pictures, the videos, and Chantel's emotional testimony, there was nothing for the defense to stand on. Aiden pled not guilty. It didn't matter. The sentence came quick: 7 years in juvenile detention. Just like that, the story vanished from the headlines, replaced by the next scandal. The media moved on, but Aiden didn't. Aiden entered juvenile detention in early 2015. He was 17, a former star athlete now wearing a number, not a jersey. The noise outside faded fast. The media stopped covering him. Letters stopped coming, friends disappeared, coaches never reached out. He vowed to take his revenge. Fast forward to the spring of 2022. Aiden had finally finished serving his time for a crime he didn't commit. And now, it was time to strike. He started tracking her down. The first year, he gathered scraps, archived yearbooks, court documents, mentions in old posts. Nothing useful, but he kept digging. He searched quietly, methodically: small towns, school registries, voter rolls, marriage licenses. Year 2, he got closer. He found her old friends. A few had moved. A few were still active online. One shared a photo, a blurry shot from a wedding, a familiar face in the background, not tagged, no location. But it was her. From there, it unraveled slowly. He traced the photographer, found the event, narrowed the town. A public marriage record confirmed it. New last name, new address. By the end of year 3, he had everything: where she lived, who she married, the names of her children, where they went to school, what car she drove, where she worked. She had built a quiet life, a stable one. Suburbs, routine, safe. And she had no idea he was watching. It was a Tuesday night, quiet, ordinary, nothing unusual. The kind of night that disappears in memory. Her neighborhood was like that, still, predictable, trimmed hedges and motion-activated porch lights. No one expected anything to happen there. At 8:42 p.m., the family's smart doorbell captured a figure standing just outside the camera's range. Not close enough to trigger a full recording, just enough to register movement. Seconds later, the feed went dead. Cut clean. Investigators believe he'd scoped out the layout days in advance, maybe even longer. He knew the camera's blind spot. He knew the kids' bedtime. He knew the locks, the back entrances, the daily rhythm of the house. Around 9:10 p.m., the children, ages 4 and 2, were reportedly taken from the living room and quietly led back to their bedrooms. Their doors were locked from the outside. No shouting, no struggle, just confusion. They thought it was a game. The home's router was ripped from the wall. No Wi-Fi, no signal. Every phone in the house, 5 in total, was later found dumped in the kitchen sink, soaked and shattered. He carried a gun. No prints, no serial number. According to detectives, it was small, old, and handled with care. When he stepped into the master bedroom, the husband was still awake, sitting on the edge of the bed. He looked up, and there he was, standing in the doorway, silent, armed. Chantel was next to him, frozen. What happened in the minutes that followed remains unclear. But what is clear, based on the evidence left behind, is that this wasn't impulsive. This was planned, down to the minute. According to the surviving witness, her husband, what happened inside that bedroom was not only violent, but methodical. He said the intruder forced him onto the floor, zip-tied his wrists behind his back, and dragged a chair into the corner of the room. He was made to sit, helpless, watching, powerless to stop anything. The man said nothing at first, only stared at Chantel. She tried to speak. He cut her off. Pacing, shaking, gripping the weapon in one hand, he began to talk, not shout. Talk. About the past, about 7 years of his life lost, about the silence, the trial, the aftermath. He blamed her for everything. Every headline, every night behind bars, every opportunity ripped away. She cried, apologized, begged, repeatedly. But according to the official statement, he didn't want an apology. He wanted her to listen. What followed was an extended, terrifying confrontation, verbal, emotional, escalating, that lasted nearly half an hour. Her husband described it as unstable, almost rehearsed, like the man had played it over in his mind 1,000 times. He then violently sexually assaulted her in front of him. He did this a couple times as he filmed and mocked her while making him watch. This lasted about 30 minutes. He cut her hair off and slapped her severally. When he was done, he finally pulled the trigger, firing the shot at her head. One shot, close range. Chantel died instantly. Crime scene investigators later confirmed the trajectory, the gunpowder residue, the angle. Everything matched the husband's account. Her body was found just feet away from where he was still bound. The weapon was wiped clean, but forensic teams lifted partial prints from the zip ties and doorframe. The entire home was silent when police arrived. No neighbors reported hearing the gunshot. The children remained locked in their rooms, unharmed, still asleep. By the time authorities entered the house, the man they were looking for was already gone. The investigation moved fast. By the time officers arrived at the scene, Aiden was already gone. No sign of forced exit, no footprints, no blood trail. But what he left behind was enough to start building a case. The first major break came from the children's bedrooms. Though the doors had been locked from the outside, one child had pushed a note under the door. A crayon drawing with a word scrawled beneath it, "Man." That note was time-stamped by an internal baby monitor system synced to a parental control app. Investigators used that timestamp to narrow the exact window of time the break-in occurred. From there, detectives retraced everything. They examined phone logs. Even though the phones were destroyed, some data remained recoverable from cloud backups and synced devices. It showed unknown movement across the property's Wi-Fi prior to it being disabled. A single MAC address connected briefly to the home's network, just long enough to register a device. That address was linked to an old prepaid phone purchased months earlier, under a fake name. But the real break came from traffic cameras. Though Aiden had parked blocks away and avoided all residential cameras, a single license plate reader at a nearby intersection captured a blurry image of a dark sedan circling the area several times that evening. DMV records showed the car had been purchased in cash under a temporary registration, the same model tied to a known associate of Aiden's from detention. A search warrant was issued. Inside the associate's garage, investigators found the vehicle, wiped down, but with faint traces of soil on the floor mats, matching the neighborhood's specific landscaping blend. Still, it wasn't enough to make an arrest. But the final link came from a mistake Aiden didn't realize he made: gloves. He wore them during the break-in, but removed them at some point, briefly. Detectives recovered a partial palm print from the inside of the bedroom door, just above the knob. It wasn't clear at first, but after several runs through the system, it came back with a match. Aiden Brown, confirmed. He was arrested in a rented room 2 cities away, living under a false name. No weapons found, no resistance. During questioning, he said almost nothing, but showed no regret. The aftermath of the case was immediate and devastating. News of Aiden Brown's arrest reignited the media firestorm that had once destroyed his life. Except this time, the tone was different. Less shock, more dread. The headlines didn't read, "Football star." They read, "Exonerated teen turned killer." The story was no longer about lost potential. It was about what that loss had created. Chantel Groove's death shook the community that had long since moved on. In the days that followed, neighbors left flowers outside the home, candles, handwritten notes. But beneath the public mourning was something colder. Questions no one really wanted to answer. What happens when a lie becomes someone's reality? And how far can a person go before breaking? Her husband and children survived, but his testimony would haunt him. He didn't return to work. He eventually relocated with the children. No interviews, no statements, just disappearance. As for Aiden, his second trial was very different from his first. This time, the evidence was overwhelming. Surveillance, digital trails, forensic links, a living witness. There was no question of whether he did it, and honestly, everyone knew why. But maybe he took it too far. What do you all think? His defense argued diminished responsibility, years of psychological damage, incarceration, trauma, public shaming, and lost future. They called it a breakdown. Prosecutors called it premeditated. The jury didn't deliberate long. He was convicted of first-degree murder, unlawful confinement, aggravated assault, and multiple related charges. He received life without the possibility of parole. The same reporters who once covered his rise now covered his fall again. But what disturbed people most wasn't just what he did, it was how methodically he did it, how long he waited, how quietly he planned, how no one, not one person, saw it coming. And maybe they should have. This is the story of how a promising young career was cut short, not just by an accusation, but by what followed. It's a case that shows the damning effect of a single lie, the silence that lets it grow, and the irreversible damage it leaves behind. Justice doesn't always come in a courtroom, and sometimes, when it does come, it's already too late. If you found this story compelling, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more true crime stories that dig deeper than the headlines.